All right, welcome to Roleplay Cafe. It's Dale here. I'm going to give a recap of session 76 of the Chronicles of Joth, which I would like to call Area 501 and use John's tagline, a riveting adventure, but I don't know ultimately what title classify it as, even though he's always open to suggestions from all of us, okay? But I'm doing a recap because I botched the recording, which is a shame because it did kind of hold this pivot point that I myself appreciated, but I'll get that toward the end because I want to do a little reflection too. And as a disclaimer, whenever I'm doing these recaps, such as they are, and they are that way because I'm playing from my character's perspective. That is, I am playing a very kind of naive but hopeful knight who's basically a lower level fighter, but he ascribes to be to check all those boxes of what a knight should be. So he can be easily manipulated at times, but he also just he will jump at any opportunity to kind of raise his flag in those moments that would give him that esteem and have others look at him that way, right? It's all about the face, the facade. I believe that makes the man, as it were. So he wants to be one of the known. So that's what motivates him, and that's what when I play as a player in that headspace, that is what I'm looking for through the interactions of what's occurring around me. I look for opportunities to have windows for him to act and interact that way. If I'm not focused in that, I miss opportunities to play the character himself. So I'm not playing in a way that John or David might, who are playing more intelligent, but yet they each have their own agenda, right? So they still got that intact, but they still have a little bit more of mental faculties to be able to weigh and measure situations more intelligently, right? Where the complexities of life oftentimes go over Nook's heads. So as a player, I'm not really attuned to that. In fact, I'll purposely almost put blinders on to that to focus on my character's immediate reactions and seizing the day, as it were, right? So literally, when I'm trying to recall this character or that character, or why they mean in the overall story, or what may be going on behind the curtains, Nook's fairly clueless, as am I, right? Purposely so. All right, at least with this character, then this portion of the campaign, which is ironic to me in what happens at the end. But I'll pick up right here. We left off in 75 in sort of dire straits and, a little bit over our heads. In one case in sewage, in Nook's case specifically. But when we left off there, we're a little bit depleted left off 75, we were a little bit depleted of HP. So we didn't have that. We're in the catacomb area. It's like underground sewer systems of Joth. But there was a breach in the wall where we'd found these catacombed areas, where there was alcoves and burial areas. Well, actually, we saw a burial barrel. It's hard to say, and Todd suggested possibly just calling them coffin kegs, which, totally cool with that. So we picked up and we tried to press on. And we were pressed on. We got to this part at the end of this, like a terminated area with a gate we couldn't pass. There was chains and a gear that you would turn to crank and lift up the gate, but you couldn't really grab a hold of it because it was already a statue-like arm grasping the crank, and it was itself, the arm terminated at the shoulder and into the wall, right? So it was stock steel, made out of stone. And then there was a mouth that was covered in, you know, lichen and moss and whatnot over the years that was there too. So it spoke to us and asked us for the doctor's name, as if we say the doctor's name, whoever the doctor is, we could gain entrance, right? Now, at this point in time, we recollected, at least myself and Moth, or Nook and Moth, recollected that there had been some Golem uprising or war, that they had pieced out all these parts of the golems to work about the city in various different ways, right? And this was obviously a stone golem that had taken his arm and put it on the wall to serve as a crank if you knew the password. We didn't. I kind of recollected as Nook that, wait a minute, didn't we have, when we were asked about the doctor, didn't we know a doctor? You know, I believe Moth tried to hit the chain and it just rattled and set the noise down the corridor, which could have alerted something. Luckily, it didn't. At that point in time, at least none that we immediately realized. So we're there. What do? Heck with it, just back out. So we're backing out. And in this, as we're traversing this area, we have to roll every once in a while. D6, hope we don't roll a 1 or 2, right? So we don't immediately. We do get to a point where I think this was David's fault because it rolled he rolled and then we came into an encounter. I'll blame you, David. And there we all take turns, right? So these 3 frogs raise up out of the central corridor of water, basically sewage mixture. Now, as a little side note, I had taken Hootie off the chain, you know, got a little chain, and as in the earlier adventures or whatever, and let Hootie swim and there. Which, ironically, from the very first session of Joth is where Weird had dragged up Hootie out of that. So it was a bit of a homecoming for Hootie. But anyway, aside from that, these 3 frogs raised up. Now, it's funny when you play games, you have these moments you go, oh my God, I hate this crap. You know, you don't know as a character, but you know. Anyway, and it turned around to bite me again as we were fighting. Moth took one out. I tried to hit, no miss, or maybe before I tried to hit the one of the frogs rolled a nat 20, which is basically swallowing. So it grabbed Nook, swallowed him down to his ankles or knees or whatever way he's kicking his little legs. If he's in there for every round after that, it's going to be 6 points of damage. But he had already been hit for 4, so I was down to like from 12 to 8 or something like that by that time, right? Anyway, luckily, and then one of them hits Ferris, David's character, and Ferris drops. He only had like 4 at that point in time, right? So he drops. Luckily, John's character skewers the one that has me before it can do me any harm, and I spill out, see Ferris crying anguish, and he go a little bit mad that my squire has fallen because I'd taken a liking to think that those around me would be in service to my ultimate cause, you know, as far as Nook goes. So I'd taken him kind of probably the reluctant squire, you know. At least this way I see it, you know, so to try to grease him up a little bit and say, yeah, now you're meant for this, thinking that his self-doubt would be what was holding back. You know, it's actually obviously just he didn't want to go that path. But anyway, aside from those little character nuances, which is part of the fun of role playing, spill out and I try to go after him, miss again. Moth yet again to save the day, just like moth to the flame, he throws out in this methane corridor. He throws out and hits the frogs that are remaining with the oil and fire. So takes them damage. Nook rolls again and hits and skewers one. I said, sliding underneath the belly of it and, emptying its contents all over me as Nick slides through and stands up in all the entrails and he's brushing them off and whatever. And anyway, so I think John's character, Moth, took out the last one. And Nook's already running over there to deal with Ferris, who's collapsed. He's relieving him, like crying, but all, to show was theatrical and in respect, you shall pay for this. But he's also knows that, he doesn't need his gear, so he's emptying his purse and everything else, right? His belongings. But he does decide to leave 2 with him to put under his eyelids so that the, bring out your dead cart can roll up and throw him on there, and pays for that transport. Well, anyway, got one in there and the second one in there, and then Moth is like, no, wait a minute. He's the priest. Maybe we should take him back to the father and see if, do something with him. I'm like, really? And then Nook realizes that they're probably not going to have, the cart may not come down the steep, so at least owes it to his friends. Ferris to take him up top. So he throws him over his shoulder. He's got Hootie on one hand. Moth has the flame, aka torch, leading us out. And then we come up against this figure, Nook stops short with the weight of Ferris on him. Moth is like, who is this? And there's a crone and a voice beckoning for the ring. And we're so low that Moth doesn't, weren't like even wanting to attempt it or fight. He fishes the ring that Nook doesn't even really know he has in his pocket out. Oh, this one? What are you going to use it for or whatever? And he said, against Thraxus. Well, Moth has no particular love for Thraxus, so, good luck. All the best. Be on your way. Take the ring. Flips the ring, and then the shadow itself reaches out and grabs the ring, and it disappears, and then she disappears, which draw from the guys. I think that was Sister Grimm. So anyway. She goes, and then we can make our way back up to the top. When we get up to the top, switch where Moth carries Ferris to the priest. We get there. He says, there's really nothing I can do. What? And mauls the fate of Ferris and whatnot. And then we were like, well, okay, I guess that's it. And he goes, unless, Father does, unless, but I do know someone that may be able to do something. So ultimately, ironically, it's back to that doctor. Nook doesn't really realize it until we get there, but we get there, and this same plagued face masked, I think it was even a golem that answered the door earlier the first time we went there. But I can't recall if a golem let us in to see the doctor, but when we got in there, like, could you do something with our friend? Let him down, and then the creature, which could have been the doctor, it could have been the golem that answers the door, going to get the doctor, left the room immediately. Now, Moth decides to look underneath a sheet that was on a table that was covering some kind of something, right? Lifts it up, and it's, I believe, half of a body of an individual that's blue with these cord-like, vine-like tendrils coming out of the body, pulsating with little lights going all the way down and going up to this little small obelisk-looking stone that's standing there. It's pulsating, and then Moth says, "Strange, I'm not touching it." And of course, Nook, from his point of view, looks at it and is a little bit transfixed by the pretty colors and the lights going in. What could this be? You know what I mean? So, yeah, I felt it was natural for him to kind of reach out and touch it. Now, when this happens, quite by, accident, and then Todd's like, there's the blue light that shines bright in your mind. It's like that's your main focus. It's not what you're looking at. But he said Ferris first off. And I'm like, Ferris? Okay. Isn't he dead? Like that. And then as this is going on, we're looking down as the real world that we're in, looking down at ourselves comes back into view, looking down at our hands, but our hands are blue. And I'm looking over and I see Moth, and he's not green anymore, he's blue. And so I have to say that voice said, you're not blue anymore. And shuddering and this voice, automated voice or something coming from the ether as far as I know, is saying something about an impending count down to something. Not count down, but this point. And Todd, basically out of the porthole, or aka window, this area, and it's vibrating. We see the receding view of the landscape as it goes into a curvature. And that's when we realize, in a meta sense, don't really know what's going on in as characters, but we realize this has shifted, huge pivot point in some ways, from fantasy to maybe a little bit of Sword and Planet. Now, that's where the curtain was drawn, and as characters, we don't know what the heck is going on, right? All we know is that he said that Ferris, as Todd said, was just mostly dead, or as Billy Crystal would say at the time. So he'll be coming back. It'll probably be a revelation to us as we stand there, but all of us are blue now, at least to our immediate visual sight. I don't know if it's just some kind of shade of blue that we're seeing, that we're all blue. So, okay, I get the reflections on this because when I was playing this game, being under there in the catacombs brought back the memory of the first session where I described where I had gotten Hootie from as my character of the time, Weird. And it's ironic that Hootie has had appearances and disappearances throughout all of our campaigns, and has switched from one character to another character, and possession still remains. And it was a bit of a homecoming, full circle back to where I got him from, for one. Now, at another point in time, middle of all these sessions, or the latter 2/3 of the session, we came into contact with another blue character. But this brought back the memory, not only this time, us being blue and the blue character underneath the sheet, but also we had encountered one about, like I said, 2/3, but it was in the first episode where Weird and Justin's character, Deanna, maybe, probably the longest lived character aside from David's character, maybe tied with Lauren, to survive through Joth, but they're both in the graveyard now. But this is, the blue men were there in the first session. Just in the gladiatorial pits, there were some of the combatants. So I'm sitting there going like, okay, and now we're blue. So to me, that's interesting. And the shift reminds me of like the Barrier Peaks, and the Beagle. I think it was anyway, in the old school D&D, there was always some kind of exploration into either a like Metamorphosis Alpha, and there's some kind of a ship that has these mutated monstrosities, or either the ship itself, what mutations could happen, it spilled over into the land, kind of a pseudo explanation for some of these creatures, but anyway, I think it's cool. Todd's Joth, the world itself, has always been very evocative. He's got art and art pieces that are striking. I knew like that one of the first times when we was walking through the forest, and there was the rooted, and I still remember that, like it was like an upstanding uh, deer that had been petrified as a tree, but you could see the form, and but it would shudder its head and shake its head, and all the the upper branches, which were basically the antlers, would shake, and then things would fall off, the spores would fall off, and it would bleat, like an animal was caught in some kind of a partial petrification paralysis thing. So it was a bit haunting, but he always works in unusual and striking imagery and description that sometimes unsettling and sometimes just plain playfully was always a bit unsettling, like nostril and whatnot. And I think sometimes when you're playing, you can offset some of that, and hopefully it's not annoying for him, but you can offset some of that by kind of making jokes here or there. But really, in the core of it is impactful stuff that you're seeing and witnessing as characters, situations, instances, NPCs that you're dealing with. Um, and I think a lot of the playfulness probably is spawned from some of the characters um, that we've incorporated into the world, and how the world the world's very fluid. As he makes it, he'll integrate what we have as characters and our concepts into the world and tie them in a way and just add them to the tapestry, like some kind of a quilt, patchwork quilt. And he does it beautifully to where it's kind of inlaid. But when you come back, you can see how he's worked it in to the whole of the picture, which is very much appreciated over the years. You feel like you're part of something that he's growing, and you have a small voice in, and that echo is throughout the continuity of the Joth world and the setting, So you feel like it's impactful, even the characters you have, and certain characters, like get character laid in the bottom of a lake in something that we never fully realized. So these things that Todd works on that is concrete, and if you would ever get to some realization or finish some quest, you would know it. But he never forces your hand to go in any specific direction. You only follow what you would like to follow, or what you are able to follow inside the capacity of your character. If your character don't expire, if you're still able and still going at it. But if you pick up another character who has no clue and is in a different area of what happened before, that's just a lost cause. So that adds a lot of mystery and gravitas to the setting. That there are things that you feel are, and are ingrained and built into the setting, and you may have gotten close to affecting it in a large way. You may have been a small part of the story, and maybe you've never really fully realized in your lifetime or your character's lifetimes outcome, of how things affected in one way. But I thought it was rather, because we've been on a lot of different adventures there, and I felt like gotten palpably close to resolving some of these things, and falling short, or like it has that bittersweet something that it's unresolved, but you feel fine because there are things going on all over the world. You pick up another character and you get embroiled into another adventure and quest somewhere else. But this, I thought it was a little ironic, and it sometimes the way life is. We just stumbled into something that opened up a doorway to a larger underlying theme and foundational aspect of Joth that we didn't know existed. And it was literally from my character Nook reaching over and doing what he did, that triggered that in these course of events. So, I mean, that's pretty amazing to me. It's not contrived. It's not forcing you down a certain corridors, whether you go where with direction. And when you trigger something either happens or it doesn't happen, or you're on the wrong, you're at a dead end or whatever. You find these things out. So it felt ironically undeserving yet satisfying to actually, from a long view perspective, that I've been a player in the world, and I finally just luckily hit a character that actually opened up another can of worms or whoop ass or whatever it may be. We're going to find out, I'm sure. Probably a combination of both. So that was good. I always enjoy the sessions, the guys I play with. Uh, Todd's imagination and his dedication to bring the world alive for us. I appreciate that more than you know, bud. And I appreciate you guys playing with us for so long. It's been, geez, probably been 7 years that we've been doing this campaign. But you know, I never feel like I don't want to just play one character. And if that's the way it would happen, that's what it is. But that's something magical about the old school, that you can play different characters and you're still in a world that will go on with or without your character, and you can still be involved in that world. You just may have to pick up a different character and roll, you know. So it's been brilliant. Um, and I know I probably missed some details of what was going on there. But if you watch any of these sessions right at the start, Todd always has a succinct, uh, you know, point by point and play by play of the previous session. So even if I gaff this one up, he will be recapping it in the next. I wouldn't suggest missing that. Anyway, gone on for too long. Enjoy it, and well, y'all have a great evening and day.